Hello everybody, Flik here. Welcome to Let's Chat, my weekly vlog series that I post every Monday. And excuse me if I'm going to be clearing my throat a few times while recording this. I have an annoying frog in my throat. It's not even a sore throat, it's just a you know, that kind of thing. We'll try and not focus on it though, because I do have something very specific to talk about once again. This was a suggestion that I got from comments on last week's Let's Chat. And thank you for listening to me go on and prattle on a little bit about my schedule as a content producer. So, the subject this week is reviewing. Reviewing the production of a review, the mindset behind doing it. And to start with, I'm actually going to read out a comment by the person who wanted me to talk about this. I think your name is Bjorn something. I can't remember your full name, I apologise. I'm going to paraphrase what he commented just to kind of give you a brief overview. So they were saying that they have a genuine interest in the line of work, and they think the reviewer's job is important. He always has an inner fear of getting blinded by light, meaning that the more you like the thing, the greater a chance that you'll no longer view it as objective as before, which is a genuine concern. Just because the majority has a certain view doesn't mean that this is law, but even though this seems to be like religion when a review speaks a different mind. Getting a bit confusing there, although keep in mind I don't think English is his first language. What he's basically saying is, he's very interested in the mindset of a review and at what point it becomes objective or subjective or opinionated, and also what happens when a review doesn't necessarily go with the opinion of the majority, goes against the grain, and so on. Now I will say, keep in mind that as far as my YouTube content goes, it is almost all first impressions for my Let's Look At series. Very occasionally it's not. For Jazzpunk it was a review, for Dark Souls 2 it was a review, but most of the time it's a first impression, so you're hearing my opinion based on a few hours of play, or like say between half an hour and an hour's worth of play before recording. That is not what a review is. A review requires a lot more work. A review, in my opinion, usually requires you to get through the game at least once, or at least a vast majority of the game if it's a long game. Say it's like a Japanese RPG, for example, that takes like 60 hours to complete. You can't be expected to do all that, especially if you only get the game, say, a few days before you can post content on it or write a review of it. But the whole thing about a review being objective, not biased, say, I don't actually agree with. My personal opinion is that all reviews are an opinion. You are hearing the opinion of the person who is reviewing it. Now, that doesn't mean that everything they list is purely their opinion. At least when I used to write reviews for Critical Gamer, I definitely imparted my opinion. I tried to justify my opinion, but then I also tried to be considerate of the other point of view that people might have about any given game that I was reviewing. So I could say, I didn't like this aspect of this game. If you like blank, then maybe you will like this, or you won't find it as objectively bad as I did. So I always try to balance out my reviews by saying that yes, I didn't like so-and-so, but if you don't mind then so-and-so, then maybe you will like the game. And I feel like that's the only kind of proper balance you can get in a review from that kind of standpoint. You can't not have a review that's opinionated, you just can't. A review that isn't an opinion is a bunch of facts read off of, say, a PR newsflash thing. So, here's a review of Dark Souls 2 without any opinion in it. Dark Souls 2 is a game. It's an RPG by From Software. It has 30-something bosses in it. It takes a while to play. It plays using these buttons. It has this voice actor in it. It has music by this author. 8 out of 10. There you go, that's an objective, unbiased review of Dark Souls 2. And, you know, just try and do it for any game you want. Just try and do it now. Try, whether you hate the game or like the game, try and now describe the game without giving an opinion. You just can't do it. It's impossible. Because otherwise you are just listing off literal facts. And that doesn't tell anybody enough about whether they should buy something, really. I mean, it can add to it a little bit, like saying, oh, this game takes so-and-so hours to complete, although you could argue that's technically opinionated slightly because one person's playtime might be different to another. Let's rephrase that. This game has 10 levels, and it has 10 levels. That's just a cold, flat statement. So then you could take that bit of information and say, well, to me, personally, that doesn't sound like enough of a game. Too few levels, I won't buy it, I'll move on to something else. But that's why reviews have to be opinions, because otherwise you're just getting a bunch of boring facts and you're not getting any details. Now, I do like written reviews. I mean, I did them for long enough, so I can't not like them. Although what I do like about video reviews is that usually if you make a statement on something, you can prove it there and then. So what I mean by that? Well, I could say the visuals in Dark Souls 2 are pretty bad. And I did in my video review. I pointed out that they're pretty not great. And while I did, I was showing off a bad looking texture close-up of my character. So I was, excuse my barking in the background. So I like that when you do a video review, you can back up your points with visual proof. That is definitely one thing that video reviews have over written reviews. Written reviews, on the other hand, get to go through the process of drafting, they get to go through the process of editing by someone other than yourself, and they get to be kind of vetoed. And I do actually like that, because sometimes you can go on a bit longer than you meant to. When I was writing for Critical Gamer, I found it very difficult to stick to a 1,000-word limit when I do reviews. If I write reviews where I'm not imposed with that limit, they end up being like 2,500 words. I mean, some of my reviews have been. So I needed an editor for that purpose. But I spoke before about a few things I wrote for Critical Gamer from the review perspective that got me in a lot of trouble with the internet because I dared to have an opinion that went against the grain. For example, with Dark Souls 1. Another example would be L.A. Noire. And a third example would be Bulletstorm. All of these things I hated with an absolute passion, and I did my very best to justify my opinion, while also trying to respect the fact that if certain people weren't as pissed off about things to do with those games that I was, they might still get enjoyment, you know, if they maybe bought on an offer, say. But yeah, to go back to Bjorn's points, it can often seem like an argument worthy of the likes of, say, a religious argument, or not even that, something more petty, like your favourite band. Have you ever heard two people arguing about different tastes in music? I feel like arguing with a reviewer about their opinion on the game is basically the same as that. It's like two people having a fight over their favourite football team. It's petty, it's stupid, and there's no point because it's just two differing opinions. Although in the game industry it's particularly annoying because often people will just vehemently defend something that let's say you've actually done a really good job of justifying your points about the negative things to do with the game. Some people are just so vehemently fanatical about said series or game that they won't care. They won't care that you've done a logical, well thought out, constructed argument. They'll just jump straight to calling you handicapped or any other bad word you can think of, as I was sometimes called in those examples I gave. And it actually put me off writing for a long time. Because it wasn't that people were calling me names, it wasn't that. It was the fact that I wasn't being listened to. They weren't reading my reviews and then arguing against my points for the most part. They were skipping across my review to the score that had to be there, unfortunately. I really don't like putting scores on games. And then they were posting knee-jerk reactions to said scores. And it bugged the hell out of me. Now, there was one thing I wrote for Critical Gamer, not a review, an article on the subject of reviewing, that never got posted because my editor disagreed with the gist of what my article was about. So it's the only thing I ever wrote for them and submitted that was refused to be posted. And it was an article I wrote about the things consciously and subconsciously that can affect someone's reviewing, and whether that would make a difference to the industry. So what do I mean by that? Well, I mean whether you like it or not, a game you're playing for review, say you've had a shitty day, and then you have to do some work, and your work has to be that you are going to sit down and start playing a game that you plan to review. You're going to go into that game potentially with a more negative attitude than you would otherwise if you'd had a good day. Let's say you've had the best day ever, and then you're settling down to do your work in the afternoon, you're going to start playing a game you're going to review. You're going to approach that game with a more positive outlook because you've had such a good day. Now, you're not doing that on purpose, but it's just the way the human mind works. It's the consciousness that works away in the background while you're focusing on other things. So that's one of the points I was trying to make in the article. I was trying to make this point that if you've had a bad day, you'll probably reflect on things you might otherwise not, and conversely, if you've had a good day, maybe you're willing to be more forgiving about something. So does that mean that I just had a really bad day back when I played Dark Souls and I hated it? Not from memory. I'm not saying it always is the case. I'm just saying that's an example of something that subconsciously may influence your opinion. And as I was trying to allude to at the start of this, you have to remember a review is an opinion. You're perfectly entitled to disagree with it, or agree. Although I would say please don't, start insulting the person just because their opinion is different from yours, because that's when we start crossing over into the more similarities between arguing this kind of thing and a religious argument where you're kind of belittling someone's beliefs almost. Granted, it's not quite as serious when you're just belittling their opinion of a game, but keep in mind that's essentially the same thing you're doing and it's not nice. So other things I wanted to mention in the game was I kind of made up this hypothetical scenario, and I did write this many years ago, so I am paraphrasing somewhat. I was making up this scenario where you wrote for a game site, or I don't know, maybe you did video reviews, it doesn't really matter, but the point was you got given this game by a PR company, and it just so happens that you know somebody who's making it. And prior to you getting given this this game for review, you've been hearing things about the production of the game, but from your friend that say it's going to be the make or break for their little company. Are you going to go into that game completely impartial? I think if you're human, the answer to that is no. I imagine 99% of people will convince themselves that they're still going to be fair when they evaluate the game, but I reckon the reality of the situation would be a proportion of people will be kinder to the game subconsciously because they want to look out for their friend and realise that their friend's livelihood is at stake here, in part thanks to what you may or may not say about the game. And then I think there will also be people in that same scenario who will then be overly critical because at the back of their head they'll be saying, I can't be kind to this. People will accuse me of being gentle because I know someone who's working on it. I have to be extra fierce about this. I have to be extra critical and point out every little irritating thing. And I think that's stuff that happens, in my opinion. And obviously my editor disagreed, and you're entirely free to disagree with me as well. I obviously have no proof. I am just basically going by how human instinct works and how humans react to situations. If someone genuinely doesn't give a shit and just reviews games, that in itself affects the review. If they don't give a shit about what they're doing, it will be reflected in their words. So reviews carry a lot of weight, and not just in the sense of how well the game might do based on some score you assign, or whether you go the simpleton route that Kotaku does and just do a big yes, no or maybe, which I find hilarious every time I see it. But yeah, you carry a lot of weight with reviews, and sorry, I just hit my desk and I saw it jumping up on the sound in the audio track there. I guess it's a very difficult thing to discuss because this is all hypothetical and anecdotal, etc. But that's what puts me off doing reviews these days, because now that I think that kind of thing, my OCD is kicked in and I'm always kind of second guessing myself when I'm forming an opinion on a game, especially if I'm trying to present my opinion of said game in a professional manner. So for when I was doing the Dark Souls 2 review, that's technically the first full proper review I've done for a long time. Yes, I did a review of Jazzpunk like a few months before. Jazzpunk is a very short indie game, and indie games in general are not as critically eyed as mainstream games. Dark Souls 2 is a mainstream game. You could argue it's technically not, but it's on major consoles, it's not gone the indie route, therefore it's mainstream. So I had to try and tackle that more professionally than I think I did Jazzpunk. So I did lots of research, I did lots of comprehensive notes to make sure I got all my points across when I was doing the video. I knew it would run on a long time, and it did end up being about 40 minutes. But I also had to be very aware of the prejudice in my subconscious, remembering how much I hated Dark Souls 1, and I found Dark Souls 1 so bad. So that was probably at the back of my mind as I was playing through Dark Souls 2. So was I going easy on Dark Souls 2 subconsciously because it wasn't as infuriating as Dark Souls 1? Or was I genuinely trying to distance myself and assess it as a proper professional reviewer? I don't know, because I don't think that is actually a thing that exists, and that was the crux of my argument in this article that never got posted. I don't think there's such a thing as an unbiased professional reviewer, because a review, by definition, is an opinion on something. Said opinion, consciously or subconsciously, can be influenced by so many different factors. It's basic psychology, and that's why I don't like discussing this, because I did a little bit of not psychology, philosophy in uni, but that doesn't give me the credibility to talk about this subject, which is why I often kind of dodge the subject when it gets brought up. But Bjorn has been asking me to kind of talk about this for quite a while, and you can probably see why maybe that my editor decided never to let me post an article about this, because I do kind of go in circles when I talk about this thing. Part of me wishes to believe that I can be entirely impartial, and that other people who do reviews can be entirely impartial and robotic maybe, and without just spewing facts can actually impart knowledge on someone about whether they should buy a game or not. But I get bogged down in the little details. It's just the way I am, unfortunately. I worry about what might be influencing my opinion on something, and there is a lot of weight in influencing other people's opinions, and that's a power that you really want to make sure that you don't misuse. So you don't want to do any shady stuff. You don't want to take money for a good review. Definitely never ever do that, and I certainly wouldn't. I definitely have more credibility than that, I hope, that I've gone on about before. But that's the kind of thing that's, it's a form of power. It has a lot of weight and opinion. In certain places, let's say you write for a gaming website, your opinion does carry weight. It carries weight in terms of how well the game may do, if people agree with you or disagree. It carries the weight of the respect people might have for the site you're posting on. Like, I'm sure some people who got really pissed off at saying my review of L.A. Noire probably never went back to Critical Gamer afterwards because they hated it so much because of what I happened to say about a game, and I still feel to this day that I fully justified my opinion of how much I disliked L.A. Noire in particular, which was a train wreck of a game. It had absolutely no sense of direction. It had good looking facial animations. That's it. And then they used the Rockstar name to, get a lot of attention, even though they had nothing to do with the construction of it. But still, we're not going to go into specifics. I'm just kind of dancing around the subject of reviewing in general. So, I don't think anyone thinks that reviewing is easy. I certainly hope they don't anyway, because it's not. Especially if you bog yourself down in little details like I do. I also don't really know if this has answered or provided you with information that you were looking for, Bjorn, and I also hope I am saying the right name. I really should have taken a note of that rather than just the question you posed. But I do agree with what you were saying. So both that the reviewer's job is exceptionally important, and also that there is genuine fear of your opinion being blinded, or that there's the chance of your opinion being influenced by a whole manner of things. It is very possible. I mean, let's take an example. Any website. I won't even name one because I'm not like drawing from reality here. If you see someone review a certain game, in fact, I had this happen. I won't say who it was. Someone said to me, "Oh, are you interested in so and so game?" I said yes. They said, "Oh well, so and so site has reviewed it," and I said, "Okay, I might go give that a read then, maybe." And they said, "I don't think I want to do that because so and so has reviewed it." And I said, "Well, why?" Said, "Well, I don't know why they gave it to this so-and-so person. It's not their type of game, so obviously they're going to hate it." And you kind of think, well, that's a difficult thing to cover as well, isn't it? Should you deliberately not give a game to someone who you know won't like it? Or do you do a random draw? I mean, how do people decide that? I mean, obviously I'm a one-man operation here, so I can pick what games I review and what I don't. If I know I'm going to vehemently hate something, am I really going to go do a review on it? That kind of feels dickish to me, although you are kind of doing a service to people by pointing out you might not want to play this because it's really, really bad. But because I get to pick and choose, I'm more inclined to pick games I'll enjoy because I'll enjoy doing the coverage, even if people don't agree with me about said game. Like right now, actually, just before I finished recording this, I was trying out a game that got pushed forward to me. A point and click puzzle game that likes to think it's satirical. I didn't find it funny at all. I found it slow and I found it tedious. And I got frustrated with it to the point where I couldn't even be bothered playing the build that I got sent. And I decided I wasn't going to cover it, and then I deleted it, and then I was sitting there thinking, oh, hang on a minute. I mean, I genuinely didn't like that. It's the first game that's an ice cream van outside my house. If you could hear that, Jesus Christ, that was very loud. It scared me for a second there. I thought to myself after I deleted it, well, hang on a minute. I mean, I really didn't like that. Maybe I should tell people that this is something they maybe don't want to bother looking for. And it would be the first thing I've covered in my Let's Look At series, if I did it, that I would genuinely be almost 100% negative about. Well, let's say about 80% negative, because there was some up points. And I didn't feel like doing it, because I have so many other games to cover. I'd rather focus on ones I enjoy, and I think I want to keep my channel with an air of positivity, I guess. That sounds cheesy as hell, but I want to cover games that I enjoy. I want to say to people, here's a game, I quite enjoyed it, you might enjoy it more. Here's how to get it if you want it. I don't want to give my channel the atmosphere of, here's a shit game, avoid it, it's bloody awful. You know, there's a subtle difference between doing those two things, and technically you could do both, although since I am a one-man operation, I don't really have the time to to cover every little thing I get sent, whether they be good or bad. That's why I pick and choose. If you're a written site, or even if you're not a written site, even if you're just a group of people who can do reviews, and you could cover everything you wanted, I don't know. I'm going around in circles again here, aren't I? And I've been talking for 20 minutes on this subject, and I don't feel we've reached any kind of logical conclusions. This is a subject I feel very strongly about, and I would absolutely love to hear people's opinions on. So if you want to talk in the comments, as long as you keep it civil, please don't argue or make fun of each other or make fun of me. If you want to have a little discussion in the comments about the subject of reviewing and the bias or unbias or objectivity of reviewing, whether it be written form, video form or whatever, I'm genuinely curious if you're of the opinion that I am, that there is this kind of subconscious side to reviewing that may or may not influence your opinion on something. Or do you side with my editor and you just thought that's all psychobabble? Reviews are just reviews. That's all nonsense. Nothing influences you. Be unbiased. I don't know. Let me know. I'm very, very, honestly very curious about this subject. I probably haven't articulated my stance on it as aptly as I would want to. That's part of the reason also why I prefer doing written reviews to spoken, because at least I can articulate myself better on paper, I think. But still, yeah, let me know. It's a subject I don't mind talking about at length, and as you can see I've just talked about it for over 20 minutes, which is a lot longer than these usually go on, and yet I still don't feel that, as I was just saying, no conclusions were reached. Although I don't think it's a subject where conclusions can be reached. It's more so that compromises can be reached perhaps, or opinions can be levied at each other, but there's no end here. So with that, somehow these always seem to take some kind of negative tone, and I really don't like that happens, because as I was just saying, I try to keep an air of positivity on my channel, not an air of negativity. Nor do I want to start getting some kind of anal obsession with FOV sliders. But still, we are going to end here. If you have an opinion on the subject of reviewing, leave it in the comments, and I will read it. I will join in perhaps if the discussion is there. And once again, please, please, please keep it civil. Even if you disagree with what me or someone else has said, keep it nice. I try and keep my comments a nice place for the most part. And with that, I'm going to conclude here. Come back next Monday. I don't know what I'll be discussing next Monday. This was very specifically asked of me to talk about, so that's why I did it this time. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week. Ta-ta for now.